special guests with us today, and the Council President has asked to begin the session and to begin the introductions. So let me recognize Councilmember Alex and Council President Alex Padilla. Mr. Padilla?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome, members of the public, colleagues. It's a special day this morning in the fact that we're going to recognize some people who have been through these chambers on occasion, but not very frequently, but play very, very critical roles for the work that we do here day in and day out, week in and week out. And unfortunately, due to term limits, they will no longer be providing their leadership and service to the City of Los Angeles in the capacities that they have just completed. But because of the work that they have done, each in a very distinguished and important way, we wanted to take an opportunity to thank them and commend them for their leadership and their hard work on behalf of the City of Los Angeles as legislators in the state of California. And I want to begin today's presentations by bringing up a very good friend of mine who has to run along to the county after this, former Speaker of the California State Assembly, Bob Hertzberg. Bob, come on up here. Man who doesn't believe in handshakes, only hugs. Bob Hertzberg, as many of you know, has represented the people of the 40th State Assembly District, but quickly became a leader amongst his colleagues in the legislature in Sacramento, and was twice elected by unanimous vote, meaning bipartisan, by unanimous vote, as Speaker of the California State Assembly. For any of you who know him, you know he's got a brilliant and intellectual mind, a hard work ethic, working around the clock, and all of this combined to give him a track record that includes, under his speakership, the state of California making record investments in the areas of improving public schools, building affordable housing, addressing traffic congestion, and utilizing the state's community colleges as the classrooms for the new economy. Being from the San Fernando Valley, Bob and I got to know each other very well and continue to be good friends. And it was an insight in my travels to Sacramento that I'm particularly grateful for. We talk here in the city of Los Angeles of having been immune and isolated from the state's energy crisis. Well, on the one hand, that may be true thanks to the great work of the Department of Water and Power, but from a political and an economic standpoint, we weren't immune. We were part of what was going on in the state. And let me tell you, when this state was in the midst of the energy crisis, I was so glad, I was so proud, I was so relieved that Bob Hertzberg was the Speaker at that time, because the issues were immense, the issues were immensely complex, and nobody, I think, was better prepared to handle the energy crisis and everything else on the plate of our state's leaders than Bob Hertzberg. So for all he's done over the years, particularly with his time in the legislature and under his stewardship as Speaker of the California State Assembly, the City of Los Angeles, the Council, the Mayor, and all its residents owe Bob Hertzberg a great deal of gratitude, and we wanted to take this opportunity to thank him. I would have a resolution for him here, but we presented you one back in November, and I'm sure it's already hanging up in your home. Thank you, Madam Chair, colleagues. In
Mr.
a minute,
President,
we want to hear from
before we hear from
Speaker.
our good friend, we have some council members who would like to be heard. First, let me recognize Councilmember Wendy Gruhl.
I just wanted to add my congratulations and thanks to Bob Hertzberg, who really has been a leader in the Valley on so many issues, and someone I have felt as a mentor and confidant and a challenger in the way sometimes we talk about things too. He's always one that will challenge me, and hopefully I challenge him back about things that we care about in the Valley. And I know that he's going to continue to be that leader in the San Fernando Valley, in the city as a whole, and probably the state as a whole. We were lucky to have him as the Speaker from the San Fernando Valley, and really you did us all proud up there. So I want to add to Alex's comments and to our other assembly members that are here, also Tony Cardenas and Rod Wright, for their leadership on the state as well, because they have really also fought for Los Angeles and made sure that we received our fair share, and look forward to their continued leadership on that. So, Bob, it's good to see you look rested. You know, is that what happens after you're no longer the elected official? You know, take care of yourself. But look forward to you frequently visiting us here and working with us to address the real common issues we share in the city of Los Angeles.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Mr. Garcetti.
Hugsburg, we're going to miss you up in the assembly. The newly svelte Hugsburg, I should say, and if you need some help shopping for suits, no doubt our local haberdasher here, Mr. Burnson, will point you to some good shops in the valley to get some nice suits. But I'd like to echo what Councilmember Gruhl said. I mean, you've been a friend of me and a mentor to me, which is a difficult thing to do when you're up in Sacramento and you're a speaker, and I'm down here as a candidate or now a city council member. But it spoke volumes about your intellectual breadth and the depth of your heart as well, that you were able to become that. I look forward to continuing with that, and I hope that you will continue in public service while you'll take a step back. You've always been one who's told it like it is. I remember you told me, and I can't say all the words right here, but he said, remember when you get into office, don't be one of those cocky young ummas when you get into office. And I've tried to live by those words because I think you are a person who puts the challenge before all of us about what public service is going to be, and we look forward to your return. And if anybody's listening, you know, I think theoretically this man who probably knows more about water policy in this state than any other former elected official would be a great commissioner of the Department of Water and Power.
Good suggestion. The chair recognizes Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to rise and thank Mr. Hertzberg for his stellar performance in the state. But I believe you're probably one of the few elected officials who I can say politically started his networking in the east side. That's right. And ended up in the west side and the valley. And ended up representing the whole state. It's a grand accomplishment. I want to thank you for that. And your insight and your support during my tribulations in my career as we evolved and kept moving forward. And I look forward to working with you in the future. Now that I understand you're a water authority, we'll be looking at your insight for the Alley River and how we can continue improving our conditions here in the state. So again, thanks for the stellar performance. And I believe I found one of your proposals for a development project, 1987, with one of your peers and your cohorts. So your heart's always in the right place for improving our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. The chair recognizes Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Madam Chair and colleagues. I've known you for the years of my PPL days, always a staunch supporter of law enforcement, always hugging law enforcement and making sure that they were represented well in Sacramento. I know that some of the directors of the PPL were in the building earlier. I don't know if they've left the building, but your association for public safety and your commitment to public safety has to be recognized. That smile on your face and the hugs, I've got one of those little bears you passed out, the Huggy Bear, and I'll always remember that. It sits up in my office of all the good times. And you've been one elected official who's really made an impact. I've been to your residence in the San Fernando Valley. You've opened up your home to people for activities. You and your wife are just wonderful people. You've done a wonderful job. And as the clock ticks and the time passes, it's amazing that when you first ran for office, it seems like yesterday, and it's such a flash that it's gone by. But you've made a commitment. You've made major strides. You've brought people together. You've brought political parties together. And clearly you've represented the San Fernando Valley and the city of Los Angeles. And I know you're going into practice to make some money and to enjoy life. And if you ever venture back into the political arena, I'm sure all of your supporters, including me, will be there cheering you on and supporting you. Best wishes to you and your family.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Councilmember Burnson.
I didn't get my hug yet today, but I'm sure before you leave, that'll take place. Let me just say that Bob has been one of the outstanding legislators that I've seen through the years that I've been involved in the community and as a council member, and before that as a business person. He's worked diligently and very hard, and he's been a real spokesperson, not just for the city, but for the Valley particularly, and for the city as a whole and the entire state. And he rose to a very deserved position of leadership. And I just want to say that, we have two other outstanding legislators there in Tony and Rod. Wake up, Rod. I'm talking about you, okay? They too have served this city and our state extremely well. And I'm not going to talk again, that's why I'm including it. This is a 3-for-1 deal. One of the real tragedies of term limits is that people of this quality can no longer continue to serve the state. And it is the loss of the people. These three individuals can go out in the community and make a lot more money and be with their families and not have to sacrifice going back and forth every week and listen to all the problems that everybody has. So it isn't they who will lose by the term limits. It is the community. It is the people who will not have the same opportunity of having the experience and the quality of legislators that you see here before you today. So I just want to thank all three of you for your work for us, for your friendship that I've had with all three of you, and I wish you the best in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brinson. Chair recognizes Councilmember Labange.
Thank you, Madam President. And Bob Hertzberg, congratulations on your next step. You really do look good. I think what Mr. Brinson said is true for all of the individuals who we're honoring today, but that's an unfortunate fact of political life with the term limits. But the great thing about Bob Hertzberg is he truly knows history. He truly knows history of this city and this state, and he did an absolute wonderful job and a focus. And I like what Mr. Garcetti said about water, because that is the lifeblood of our community, and what you've done, what you continue to do, what you hope to do in the future will certainly have a benefit on the people of California and particularly Los Angeles. So I wanted to thank you. You do have one of the greatest hugs around, and it's just always good. Stay healthy, have fun, and enjoy life. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilmember Hahn.
I felt peer pressure. Everybody said something. So, but really, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for your, all three of you, for the way you fought for Los Angeles. And over the years, sometimes Los Angeles feels like maybe we haven't gotten our fair share from Sacramento, but the three of you have always fought for us and have always stood up for us and have always really worked to improve, in my opinion, the quality of life for everybody. And I must say about Bob, we've been friends over the years. I've had my share of hugs over the year. But the first time I really got to work with you seriously on an issue was recently in Los Angeles. And I know you love Los Angeles, and I know you wanted to keep Los Angeles together as one unified city. But you also said it was an opportunity for us to look at restructuring government and restructuring how this city behaved and how in the future we did deliver services. And we got into some very serious issues on how we do that. And you were the one, in my opinion, that made all of us seriously look at the possibility of breaking the city up into boroughs. And while ultimately Wendy and I had one proposal, you had another one, I think it was the fact that you were so serious and it was so well thought out that you made the rest of us really have to have that debate and really have to look seriously at restructuring city government. Ultimately, that's not what we did, but in my opinion, we still have a lot of work to do to restructure our government so that, all neighborhoods feel like they have control over the decisions that are made that impact their communities. So I appreciated your thoughtful consideration of restructuring our government. I really think we ought to continue, and I'd like to see you continue to be involved in how this city really re-identifies itself in the future on how we're going to respond to our constituents. So thank you for that worthy battle on boroughs. I appreciated your ultimate love for Los Angeles, and I think that's behind really everything you've ever done. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Before we hear from Bob, I'd just like to tell, I think, a nice anecdote about Bob Hertzberg. I visited his district office in the State Building in Van Nuys when he was first elected, and I don't think there's anything that embodies him more than in this state office building, in his district office, he had signs over each of the desks. The deputy to deal with public safety, the area where the department to deal with citizen complaints. But he had over the ceiling, hanging over a group of desks, something called the Department of New Ideas. And as a newly elected legislator, at the very earliest time, he was saying, I want new ideas to be a part of how we do governance. And I think, as Ms. Hahn said, we saw that and recently learned that. And I don't think that there was an issue or a policy that came to the state or does affect the city that Bob Hertzberg doesn't do his homework and becomes the expert because he learns the history, he learns about what needs to be done, and helps bring people together to try it. So we are looking forward to a whole lot of new ideas. I know that font will not run dry. And I was going to call on you, but we just had a new member join us at the quorum today. Let me recognize Councilmember Holden.
Very good, very good. I'm sure a lot of things have been said that are good about you, and they couldn't say anything else because everything to be said is good. And I just want you to know that I echo what I know my colleagues must have said. I would say, however, that you didn't have to leave politics. You're doing it on a voluntary basis. You know as well as I do, we had some conversations that there was an office open to you which you could have been serving in as we currently speak. But you decided not to do that. I'm sure you talked to your family and friends and made that choice. But you must know that we in government and we in our community need more people like you to continue to serve us. You have the experience and you have done a good job. We know we'll do a good job in the future. One sad thing about what's happened to the state of California, and the people must know what they've done to themselves, because they've been propagandized to believe in so-called term limits. And term limits have forced good people like you and your colleagues out of office at a time when we needed you the very, very, very most. There are times right now in Sacramento where we are addressing a budget crisis. You know as much about it as I do in terms of it's very difficult to try and get blood from a turnip because there's none there. And I must say to you that the people of this state are going to have to wake up and pay attention to what they've done to themselves, what they've done to the state of California, and repeal term limits and save people like you. Save people like you. It's not too late. And I'm hoping that they not only will do it for your body, that you are not leaving, but also for this city council. It was a stupid thing to do, but they didn't know. They were propagandized once again, believing that all elected officials are bad. They had nothing to offer, but now they know because they're going to pay more taxes. They're going to pay for the mistake they made. And it's too bad that it's happened to people like you and others around here, but that's the way it goes. I just hold, you hold one thought. Now that's all the good part. What about that deregulation? That was terrible, but that's okay. That's what term limits did to us also.
Bob,
Ladies
it's
and
your
gentlemen,
turn.
Speaker Emeritus of the California State Assembly, and the man competing with Zev Yaroslavsky to be the next Slim Fast spokesperson, Bob Hertzberg.
Thank you. Madam President and Mr. President and council members, thank you very much for the warmth and sincerity of your comments. It means a great deal to me personally. I thank you very much. I just briefly want to say that Yes, I do love the city of Los Angeles. I do embrace its history. I understand it. I love it. I've studied it my whole life, whether it's from the issue, Mr. Deaton, of water or other issues that are characteristic of what Los Angeles is. And I have had a very, 20 hours a day, 7 days a week for 6 years. It feels like about 200 years on the one hand. On the other hand, it was a blink of the eye. But always I kept in mind to in fact level the playing field, to in fact ensure that Los Angeles on a per capita basis got its fair share. Together with the budget chair, Mr. Cardenas, and on the energy issues, Mr. Wright, who are here with me today, as we worked very, very hard grappling with these issues. And so I will continue in the best way I can to participate in the public debate, to help in any way that I can as I move on to the private sector for a period of time in my life. And I thank you all. I thank you for this very, very much. And I also thank all of you for your commitment. And I only wish that the public had an ability to travel around with you on any given day, to understand what time you get up in the morning, to how many functions you go to how many issues you have to grapple with, and how hard you work. Because I think if any citizen of this city had an opportunity to sit with any of you, they would have a much more deep appreciation and maybe deal, Mr. Holden, with this term limit issue, and understanding the commitment that you all have to public service. And I thank you for that, and I thank you for this opportunity to speak before you today. Thank you very much. Can I walk over and give Bernsen a hug? Absolutely.
Mr. Bernsen, please rise. You have somebody coming at you to your left. You wanted a hug? Here it comes. Members of the council, we had 5 members of the legislature expected this morning, and I have yet to see former Assemblymember Carl Washington and former State Senator Richard Polanco, but we do have 2 other guests with us today and want to proceed with their recognitions. Our next presentation is to not only a colleague from the San Fernando Valley, but also, as many of you know, a good personal friend of mine, and that is former Assemblyman Tony Cardenas. If Mr. Cardenas can please join me at the podium. I know too well about the campaign that Tony Cardenas underwent in 1996 to first be elected to the California State Assembly, but I'm proud of his career in serving the Northeast San Fernando Valley and all of the city of Los Angeles over the last 6 years, most notably as the author of the bill who brought a small business development center to the city of Los Angeles and located it in the San Fernando Valley. He went on to serve in various leadership positions in the California State Legislature, including a term as chairman of the Budget Committee, at which time he was able to secure more than $200 million in new textbooks and classroom materials for children throughout the state of California, including $30 million in after-school program investments, and including several $million of support for Los Angeles' own Children's Museum. Most notably, I think Mr. Cardenas is proud of AB 1933, which is responsible for more than $240 million in not only the COPS programs, but $240 million in juvenile justice programs funding prevention and treatment programs for youth at risk throughout the state of California. For these and many, many other reasons, the city of Los Angeles is indebted to Mr. Cardenas and commends him and thanks him for his years of service and leadership in the California State Legislature, and we have this resolution on behalf of the city. Thank you.
I want to thank the City Council and also the City of Los Angeles for giving me this honor today. But first and foremost, I'd like to thank the voters of the 39th District for electing me 3 times in the San Fernando Valley. I proudly say I'm the son of immigrants. My mother and father had a 1st and 2nd grade education, and they raised 11 children in Pacoima. We all went to public school, and their youngest son, Tony Cardenas, myself, I got to be elected to the state legislature. Just this morning, once again, I stood before 6-year-old children and I professed to them that this is a great, great country, and this truly is a country of opportunity for everyone. And I've been living a dream for the last 6 years in the state legislature. And I wrote on the wall, on the chalkboard of that room this morning, and I explained to those little children that the son of immigrants with a first and second grade education was given the responsibility of a $100 billion budget of the state of California 2 years ago. And I did that work proudly. And the most important lessons that I learned were learned from my parents, and they served me well as I served in the state legislature. So once again, this is a great country. Thank you for this honor from the greatest city in California, the city of Los Angeles. I cherish having been a lifelong member of this wonderful city, and I look forward, God willing, to serve the community of the San Fernando Valley again. Once again, thank you very much for this honor.
Tony, before you leave, you got to the microphone faster than my colleagues got to their buttons, but let me recognize Councilmember Reyes, who would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to say thank you for being a role model for all the young people in the San Fernando Valley and throughout Los Angeles, for those accomplishments and for sharing those stories, because people need to understand that things can be accomplished, and your accomplishments have been great for our area and for our whole region. So thank you very much.
Councilmember LeBond.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the council. I love what you said about your family. That's a beautiful thing. And I was going to talk about your family, because you're a beautiful father and have 4 children? Four beautiful children, and the important role that is, because I know it's difficult being in Sacramento away from your family in that. But I want to congratulate you for your service and wish you good luck, and thank you for all you did for Los Angeles, especially on the park issues where you were instrumental in helping the whole region. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Zine.
Thank you, Madam Chair and colleagues. Tony, I remember probably 7 years ago in front of Foothill Police Station.
That's right.
You were a candidate for the State Assembly, and you received the endorsement of the Police Protective League. We did a photo shoot with you. I remember your beautiful wife and I think you just had a baby, infant at that time, 2 months old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to see the years pass so quickly. I know that you're in a race to assume a position at the Los Angeles City Council, and I wish you well in that endeavor. You're definitely a wonderful public servant. You've come from humble beginnings, and you haven't forgotten your beginnings. You haven't forgotten the people that you represent. I remember the Cardenas at Mission College. There was a fundraiser at that facility for the community.
Yeah, scholarships.
The scholarship. I remember attending that. So you've given back to the community for many, many years. I'm sure you'll continue to do that. I wish you great luck. You know you've got my support in your future endeavor, March of 2003, if I'm not mistaken. So wish you luck, and soon to be a colleague. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. Councilmember Galanter.
Well, as the person whose seat he's going to take, I want to join in thanking you I especially want to thank you for the money for the universal access playgrounds. And before you leave, I got to talk to you. We have one more thing we have to do.
Got it.
So just the mere fact that you're out of the assembly is a minor detail. We'll take care of this anyway. It really has been my pleasure to work with you. I didn't get to know you until we wound up sharing a district, and I'm sorry I didn't get to know you earlier, because I think we could have done more productive things. But I think your contribution to children with disabilities and their families is something that, as almost your last act in the Assembly and probably one of your first acts at the City Council, is something to be very, very proud of, and one of those things that goes far beyond anything that has to do with your particular background, but really does have to do with your commitment to getting something done that needed to be done and doing it quickly and efficiently. And so I want to say thank you and congratulations, and look forward to working with you as we transition.
Thank you. Councilmember Garcetti.
Thank you, Madam President. Just wanted to join in congratulating you on your distinguished service, Tony. I know that being chair of Budget Committee, especially at this time, was a particularly taxing, no pun intended, assignment. But I think you came through, and one of the most impressive things I saw from the outside was you just sat down figured out a way that worked, and I think that should you get here or whatever your next step is, I think there are so many problems that we face here in this city that I look forward to having you apply that same mind, but also that same heart to the issues here. So congratulations today. Felicidades.
Tony, just let me just add too, I can't think of a better equation than to have a legacy and have your name linked with the children of California, the children of Los Angeles. You spoke today from the heart and talked about being first at a group of, speaking this morning to a group of 6-year-olds, and that legacy is going to be with you for the future in whatever your endeavor is, and I think all of the children of Los Angeles benefit, so thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd also like to thank the council members who took the time to make comments and thank me for my service in the legislature. But one thing that I would like to say as well, when Ruth stood up, she reminded me how I was inspired. I truly was inspired to do something with the things that we learn in office is to put things together and then make sure that we prepare for the future. And I put together some money for the city of Los Angeles for parks. And for lack of a better way of putting it, I was sitting on some of this money and I was yet to delegate exactly how we were going to use that money. So a portion of it is going to make sure that every single council member here is going to have, over the next couple of years, you are going to have a universal access playground in your district. There will be 15, which means Los Angeles, we will be the example and the model for the rest of the country for the most needy of children, and everybody deserves equal access, and that's a perfect example of what we can do together when we're inspired by each other to work together and to do good things together. So once again, thank you for your inspiration, all of you. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for this honor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, our, I believe, final presentation this morning is no stranger to the City of Los Angeles and to City Hall. Please welcome Assemblymember Rod Wright. Thank you. Although Assemblymember Wright has been serving the City of Los Angeles in various capacities for the last 20 years, he was elected to the Assembly in 1996. He served previously in numerous capacities for other elected officials, as well as serving as a speechwriter. I just learned this morning, a speechwriter for the Reverend Jesse Jackson. So quite a diverse background and experience that he brings to public service. I think he's best noted for recently for having preserved an energy assistance program for low-income residents of the City of Los Angeles and the state of California, and for strengthening the protections for senior citizens against dishonest home contracting and property improvement fraud. As former Speaker Hertzberg mentioned, he chaired the Utilities and Commerce Committee at probably the most challenging time in recent California history, and was part of the solution of steering the state of California through an energy crisis and the various challenges that have come through utilities and technology on a statewide basis. Rod, for all your leadership and hard work in the California State Legislature on our behalf, I want to thank you very, very much. Sure.
Let me recognize Councilmember Labange.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to salute Rod Wright. Rod Wright has a great history in this building. He was a deputy, and he was a tremendous advocate in the communities, but also he was a great outfielder for the City Hall, as when Greg Nelson organized all the baseball players here, and he really could do a great job, great teamwork, Rod. So I want to congratulate you on all your past history, but on your work in Sacramento, and also your great work at Exposition Park, and your effort to revitalize one of the jewels of Southern California, Exposition Park, with the Coliseum and the Natural History Museum and the California Science Center, as well as the African American. Congratulations to all your years of service.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Mr. Holden. Chair recognizes Councilmember Holden.
Oh, where did it go? That doesn't work. Hold my time. Mr. Rod Wright, how are you?
It's all good.
Very good. Rod Wright though he looks like a real young guy today, has had many years of experience in the field as a public servant. I met him years ago when he was actively campaigning for other elected officials like Maxine Waters for the Assembly, and then she went on to he became a staff person to Ms. Waters, and then Marguerite Archie, and so on. And then, of course, he replaced her because of term limits that was established by the people of the state of California, and I've already had my say on term limits. How awful it is to have people leave office who are well qualified sooner than they would otherwise. Term limits should be every time you're up for re-election, and that should be it. And at no other time. We're losing all this talent. I just want you to know that you've done good for the people of the state of California. I know that you're heading up the Coliseum area. That's part of your district. I just wanted to prevail on you then, and I'm sure it worked out, that we want the Coliseum Commission to still be county, city, and state. You support that now, right?
No, I did then.
Okay, very good. Anyway, good luck. You'll do well, I'm sure, in your retirement. And if you have any other aspirations, I'm sure you'll do well there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rod?
Let me take a moment and just again thank, as all my colleagues have, the people of the great city of Los Angeles. And Madam President, members, it is kind of humbling to be here because this is pretty much where I started, albeit almost 30 years ago. I do well at hiding my age, but the gray hair and the receding hairline are beginning to show. And, you know, very much like Bob Hertzberg, I love Los Angeles. This has always been home to me, and when you leave here and you go to, whether it be Sacramento or San Francisco, you really come to understand what it is so much about the city that you love. In fact, you know, chairing Utilities and Commerce, you'd have people who would want to attack our great Department of Water and Power and other things. Now, in our neighborhood, we would call those people player haters. And there were a number of player haters in Sacramento who wanted to take what we have. And I think that you have been stewards of making sure that we protected the jewel of the city, which is certainly the Department of Water and Power, the airport, and the ports, which have been really the harbingers of making sure that this was a great city. Going all the way back to Mr. Mulholland and all of the people who developed this great city over the years. I want to say thank you for this honor today. Thank you to my friend, Council President Padilla, for recognizing me for the service that I provided the state of California.
Rod, as you'll often find out around here, the person who has the final word is Mr. Deaton. Could I ask the turn on Mr. Zine's mic?
Just like to add a comment that during the deregulation and the whole thing with electric utilities, et cetera, talking to people in Sacramento, you had two problems. One is the politics, and then they didn't understand it. And very few people both understood the politics and understood what we were talking about when we talked about the Department of Water and Power. And that has happened all the way up into those in this last session continually. Rod Wright has been there for us on the electrical utility issues day in and day out, and actually can hit the ball back. He actually understood the issues, which is not a common thing, quite frankly, for as complex as they got. Sometimes, as you could see, they passed legislation, they didn't know what was going to happen, and we were able to, through the good offices of Rod Wright, make sure that that didn't happen to the Department of Water and Power.
If I could conclude, Madam Chair, and Mr. Deaton reminded me, Tony, Bob, and I were not there when they passed the deregulation bill. That occurred prior to our arrival. But what we did do is make sure that we protected the city of Los Angeles through the calamity that took place after the bill was done. And certainly in his absence, let me say that the Speaker, Hertzberg, gave me a lot of latitude, and we all made sure that we protected this great city and our own Department of Water and Power, because, I mean, you don't know the vultures that wanted a piece of Los Angeles as we were going through that exercise. And so in his absence, Speaker Hertzberg made it possible and said, Rod, whatever you do, make sure you take care of home, because after this is over, and we knew that it would be, you got to go back there. So you want to make sure that you leave it in the same condition that you found it. Thank you again so much, Madam President.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. President, for bringing these three distinguished leaders with us today. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Point of information, I've been here the 16 years in June, end of June. That's the first time that I've heard Mr. Deaton stand up and compliment any outside person for anything. Very good, Mr. Deaton.
Let us call the roll, and then we will recognize Mr. Labange.
Burnson, Galanter, Garcetti, Gruel, Hahn, Holden, Labange, Mizikowski, Pacheco, Perry, Reyes, Weiss, Sine, Padilla, 11 members present, and a quorum, Madam
All right,
President.
the council is in session. Mr. Labange.
Madam President, members of the council, our colleague Jan Perry is under the weather, but she asked me to substitute for her today to recognize someone who's very special in the community, Mr. Leonard Rosen. Mr. Leonard Rosen is the owner of Republic Furniture Manufacturing, which he opened in 1963, which is located in the central part of Los Angeles on 61st Street. And his business has been operating for almost 40 years. He's been a great supporter of the community and has steadfastly demonstrated his commitment and concern for South Los Angeles by being there, by hiring people, by improving his business and working with the community all these years. He serves on various organizations throughout the community. He also is very active in the great University of Southern California, home of the 2002 Heisman Trophy winner, Carlson Palmer. Yeah, give him a hand, too. That's every Trojan, you're a Trojan, you could take a little of that. But he's been very active for the City of Hope for the past 15 years. He has a wonderful family. He arrived from Pittsburgh in 1937, is that correct? 1935. I was off by 2 years, I'm sorry. And he played football for the USC until a career in soldier in his arm. He hurt his arm and he couldn't play anymore. But no, Leonard, you're truly a wonderful person who's helped Jan Perry in the 9th District with Republic Furniture Manufacturing. I want to salute you and for this 4 decades of successful service. And before I ask you to speak, someone is the former captain of Newton area of LAPD, now the commander of Robbery Homicide Division, would like to say a few words on behalf of the police department, the support that Leonard Rosen has always given the LAPD and the 9th District. Mr. Jim Tatro. Cap Tatro.
Thank you, Councilman Labange. It was my experience to work with Mr. Rosen in Newton Division for over 6 years that I was the area captain. And what is very significant, what we should recognize, is that his business is in what is known as the Goodyear track, a heavily manufacturing area, and he employs so many people from the community, good people, work hard, have good jobs, and a wonderful place to go to work, very close to them at 61st and Central Avenue. And conditions are not always the best for those businesses down there. They suffer from illegal dumping, and they suffer from graffiti, and it is not always the best environment. But people like Leonard, who tough it out year after year, try to make a difference, work with the city, and for that we are eternally grateful. He's a wonderful man, has a wonderful family, and my congratulations to him. Thank you, Leonard.
Thank you very much. And now please welcome Mr. Leonard Rosen.
I really don't know why I'm here, but I want to thank the council for taking the time to honor me. It is a great honor. I wish my parents were here to share it with me. My wife is here, my son is here, my 2 daughters are here.
Please have the family stand up and be recognized by the council.
I'm sorry that John isn't here because we played freshman ball together.
Right, right. Well, Leonard, on behalf of Jan Perry, the councilwoman, and all the city council, we want to salute you for your 4 decades of great service and wish you well in all the things that you do. We're going to take that publicity shot so you can put it in Furniture Today. All right. Good job. Here we go.
Thank you.
You betcha. That's all right.
No, just one.
Thank you very much, Council and Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. We have one final presentation. Let me recognize Councilmember Reyes.
Got this? Thank you, Madam President. I know there's an extensive agenda today, so I thank the council for their indulgence. But it was important to bring the folks I'm presenting to you so that we can understand and see the kind of effort that's being made by folks who are truly concerned about the impacts that projects have in our communities. The development of the Blue Line, which is now identified as the Gold Line, is an $800 million project. It's going to be a major asset to the region. But the truth of the matter is, when this project started, the last communities that were being considered was actually Los Angeles, when you looked at the fact that the stations that were being identified were mostly in the South Pasadena area. I believe 8 or 10 stations were identified in the EIR, and they had 2 or 3 for the Los Angeles side. So the city of LA said, great, you can build the line and you can take it from Pasadena to South Pasadena. This was 12 years ago. Since then, we've been having community meetings. We've gone through many changes, many intense issues were raised. There's a time when the Blue Line was dropped, and when it came back to life, what was being displayed and proposed as the project was not what the community had agreed upon. And so it is with that sense of commitment that I want to present to you the group that's with me today. They were the stalwarts, the warriors that fought on, wanted to make sure that the issues of quality of life were addressed, and they essentially made sure that the community voice was heard. Many people have been involved with this project from all the neighborhoods: Chinatown, Lincoln Heights, Highland Park, Mount Washington, Montecito Heights, all the way through Los Angeles, Cypress Park. But the fact is, there's always a handful of people that are there late at night, community meetings, family sessions, community sessions, and there's a lot that's being given that happens throughout all these endeavors. So I'd like to identify them. They are Larry Hoffman, Paul Arns, Brian A. Merriman, and Mrs. Arns and the family too, Mark E. Gustafson, Maria Harrington, and Jim and Marie Leong. They are residents of one of the areas that will be impacted by the Gold Line, and they have been very active with the support of a law firm, White & Case. And you should know that White & Case is an internationally recognized law firm with various fields of expertise. What is not usually known about them is that they have a history of community activism. And when I say that, I mean they, over the past 2 years, have been selected by the AM Law 100's ranking as the 7th and 4th most active law firm, respectively, for their pro bono work. And it is with this pro bono work that they're able to provide technical expertise, legal expertise, and how to posture themselves at the city level, at the county level, and at the state level, especially with the Public Utilities Commission. And I truly believe, because of their efforts and the stamina and the commitment by the community folks, that the Gold Line today is a better rail line for their efforts. So I thought it was important that we bring them in and recognize their work. And you know, usually when residents approach you with lawyers, it's bad news. But in this case, that's not the truth. The fact is, with their wherewithal, we were able to bring together a mix of understandings that I believe is going to be better for everyone in the long run. For our community, it was good news that you were there, and for that, we're very appreciative. So I do have certificates for each one of the persons here today. I will present them in the press room, but right now I would like to present this certificate to the following 3 individuals. And that is Larry Hoffman. Thank you, Larry. Paul Arns. And Brian A. Merriman. Would you like to share a few words? Thank you, sir.
Along with my fellow honorees, I'd like to thank the Council for recognizing our efforts in participating in the development of a good rapid transit system in Los Angeles. I'm very proud of what we've accomplished so far. I think that what's being built now is a much safer system than the one that was first proposed, and one that is more respectful of the communities through which it's passing. But in a way, this ceremony is a bit premature because there's a lot more work to be done. Among other things, there are operational issues that need to be addressed, and there's one in particular that this body should be very concerned with or interested in, and that has to do with an ordinance that was adopted by this council precisely 25 years ago. Back in the 1970s, the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway used the right-of-way that's now being used by the Blue Line as a feeder line and ran about 5 trains a day through the Mount Washington area. And the noise that was generated by the horns of that train was sufficiently severe that citizens complained to their city council, and those citizens, by the way, include Jim and Marie Leong, whom you're honoring today. So they've been on this for 25 years. And they, the city council enacted an ordinance that says in the Mount Washington district, given the unusual topography and the effect of the noise of the train horns being such a disturbance, the trains cannot sound their horns except in cases of emergency. That ordinance has now been preempted by subsequent developments. The Public Utilities Commission now orders trains to sound their horns at every crossing routinely, and that means that once these trains come up and running, we're going to be having not just 5 trains a day sounding their horns, but 200 trains a day sounding their horns. We're working with the Commission, Public Utilities Commission, to revive that ordinance. There's a procedure that's available to us. If and when the citizens of Mount Washington choose to seek that relief from the requirement of the horn blowing, we'll be coming back to the council asking for your support in reinstating the ordinance that you enacted precisely 25 years ago. Again, thank you very much for honoring us today. We really appreciate your attention.
Mr. Garcetti?
I just wanted to say something very briefly. Thank you, Councilmember Reyes, for recognizing White & Case, which is not only one of the great firms in Los Angeles, but one of the most civically minded. And thank you, gentlemen, for the work that you're doing. I also want to praise and single out for praise Susan Baldwin, who I think as well helped make this link, a resident of Mount Washington, right there on Museum Drive, a good friend and somebody who I think made this link between the firm and the city. And we look forward to her continued good work for the city of Los Angeles.
Yes, I'm Paul Ahrens. Mr. President, council members, Councilmember Reyes, thank you very much for your recognition. My wife and I have tried to teach our 2 daughters that it is important to stand up for what is right and to fight for justice. So today, I'm very proud to receive this recognition from you in front of my wife and children. And I want to thank you, family, for your patience and for loaning me out to the neighborhood for the past 3 years. I'd also like to thank literally hundreds and hundreds of people in the Mount Washington area and neighboring, surrounding neighborhoods who have come out to sign petitions, write letters, attend fundraisers, all of the hard grassroots work that has gone into achieving the gains that we have made. As Larry mentioned, the fight isn't over. We really do need this city council to work with the neighborhoods to see that we have a gold line that we can be proud of, that we can live with, that's not an ugly, invasive swath through our neighborhood. We need neighborhood-appropriate economic development. We need attractive street and landscaping improvements, tree replacement that uses native species wherever possible. And we need to continue to work with the appropriate city department staff and council staffs to make sure that these things happen. And as Larry said, we still face the issue of the train horns, and we sure hope that if the horns do create the public nuisance that some of us fear that they may, as the freight horns did years ago, that we'll be back in these very council chambers calling upon you to do the right thing and to support a new quiet zone through application to the California PUC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Reyes, and to the entire City Council. I'm very pleased that the city has chosen to recognize the entire Mount Washington community and these gentlemen behind me for the tremendous work they've done over the last few years in helping to ensure the safety of public transportation and maintain the existing quality of life for communities. And thank you, Councilmember Garcetti, for recognizing my firm. We came into this battle late, and we're very pleased to assist. The two gentlemen behind me have fought for years and deserve much of the credit. And finally, I just want to reiterate what the two gentlemen said, that we're very pleased with the significant safety mitigation efforts and on the Gold Line, but our work is not over. After the trains start running, we hope everything's fine, but if we need additional mitigation efforts, we hope the council will be behind us and support the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Madam Clerk, first order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Ms. Misikowski moves and Mr. Garcetti seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Holden moves and Mr. Zine seconds.
Before beginning the regular agenda, Mr. President, this is also Tuesday, and there's a flag salute and moment of inspiration.
Okay. Madam Clerk, do we have a council office designated for?
There is not anyone designated for the moment of
Let's
inspiration.
proceed with the agenda for today.
Before beginning the regular agenda, item number 4, there's a request from Councilmember Hahn to continue that matter to January 7th.
Okay, members request to continue without objection, so ordered.
And also there's a request on behalf of Councilmember Perry to continue items 1, 6, 11, 33, and 47 for one day to December 18th.
Okay, members, another request to continue matters by Council District 9 without objection, so ordered.
On the regular agenda, item number 8 is confirmation of Edgerton Forster to the Martin Luther King General Hospital Authority, and a public hearing has been held in committee.
Is Mr. Forster available? Please come forward at this time. Members, we have a committee report recommending confirmation of this commission nominee before us. Are there members wishing to be heard? Item number 8. Item number 8, Mr. Holden. Did you wish to be heard?
Right.
May I ask you to press your button, please? Mr. Holden.
Martin Luther King Jr. Hospital Authority. How long have you been serving on that commission?
2 years.
2 years? Speaking to the mic. And anything significant you've done in the past 2 years over there?
No.
Pardon?
No.
Oh.
Not yet.
You still want to serve? How often do they meet?
Well, to me that's an on-call commission whenever there is.
On call?
Yeah, whenever there is.
Okay. What do you know about the hospital and the medical school? Or, you know anything about the fact that they have a 2-year medical school program, or UCLA? You know anything about that at all? Or just the hospital has nothing to do with your medical center? All
Just
right.
the hospital and the clinic.
All right. But the hospital is, I understand there's a real problem with one of the departments. Is the ophthalmology or something like that, where they're having some accreditation problems? Or which is it?
Problem. Yeah.
But you don't know.
I don't know the details of it.
Oh, you don't know the details. All right. Well, you see, Martin Luther King Jr. Hospital, it's love of our life. Janice Hahn and Nate Holden. I mean, we were there when we dedicated the hospital. Her dad did that. And he had to fight to get that hospital approved by the state. And he went straight to President Johnson, who gave him federal money to make it happen against all odds. The people of this city voted against the this county voted against the appropriations for that hospital, even though it was needed. It was caused, one of the major causes of the riots in 1965, because the gentleman was driving his wife for health care because they had no health facilities in that area. Got to know something about the history over there. And I must tell you that since then, military doctors that need training went into that area, and they're able to acquire the necessary training, sad to say, to prepare them for conflicts elsewhere. And they've saved many lives. I've known people who had their legs severed by a railroad train and it was put back. I've known people who had their heart stopped beating, ice pick in the heart, and they lived. They walk out of the hospital. So you have a terrific assignment. You should know about the accomplishments of those medical professionals, and they are that at that hospital. Many of them I know, Tommy Lasorda, who was helped. The doctors were trained at Martin Luther King Hospital, and now they're serving elsewhere in the city of Los Angeles and in the county as well. Great medical institution. And since you want to volunteer to do it for another 2 years, I'm going to vote for you.
Thank you.
All right, but learn more about it.
Thank you.
Okay, other members wishing to be heard? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please open the roll? Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Congratulations, you're confirmed.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service to the city. Forthwith, please. Members, actually, this being the last week before the end of the year, the last legislative week before the end of the year, all matters approved today by the council will be sent forthwith. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Next items, Mr. President, items noticed for public hearing. Items 2 and 3 are confirmations of street lighting assessments or abandoning of street lighting assessments, and an ordinances are before the council.
Okay, items 2 and 3 now before us. Have no requests from members of the public to address the council on these matters. We shall deem the public hearings open and closed. Members wishing to be heard on items 2 and 3, or to call items 2 and 3 special.
Oh, we just started the agenda, call it.
We're just starting the...
We didn't get to 21 yet.
Items 2 and 3. Any requests to call these matters special? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those being ordinances carry over for a second reading. Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, item number 5 is a protest hearing on the Greater Lamert Park Village and Crenshaw Corridor Property and Business Improvement District.
And once again, seeing no requests from members of the public to address the council on item number 5, we shall deem the public hearing satisfied. Members wishing to call item 5 special? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please open the roll on item number 5. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved.
And the ballot tabulation will be on tomorrow's agenda.
Next item, please.
Item number 7 is a continued hearing, building and safety assessment confirmation.
Item number 7 now before us, and seeing no requests from members of the public to address the council, public hearing is closed. Members wishing to call item number 7 special? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Items for which public hearings have been held, items 9 through 25.
Items 9 through 25 now before us. Members wishing to call any specials? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please open. Ms. Hahn? Ms. Hahn calls item 22 special. 14 call special by Mr. Labange.
21 special.
21 call special by Mr. Holden.
And 26.
We're not quite there yet.
All right. Next.
Members, items 9 through 25 currently before us. Items 14, 21, and 22 have been called special. Any other specials? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please open the roll on the balance of the items. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
Okay. Items for which public hearings have not been held, items 26 through 52.
Item 26, call special by Mr. Holden. Any other specials? I have a card on item 48, Madam Clerk. Let's call that matter special. Members, items 26 through 52 before us. Any other specials? Ms. Galanter.
Item 50, I believe it is. No, sorry, it's not. Never mind.
Any other specials?
There is an amending motion, 58, that has been distributed for number 50. I don't know if that should be called special.
Ms. Gruhl?
Yes, item 29, we're going to submit a amending motion as well, if we could call that special as
Okay,
well.
let's call 29 special. Awaiting an amending motion from Ms. Gruhl. Item 50, there has been an amending motion distributed. I believe it's technical in nature.
Be special, please.
Ms. Galanter?
50.
Ms. Galanter calls item 50 special. Any other specials? Items 26 through 52. Seeing no further specials, Madam Clerk, please open the roll on the balance of the items. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved. Items 27 and 28 being ordinances carry over for a second reading. Next items, please.
Next item, Mr. President, closed session items 53 through 55. Do you wish to hold those on the desk?
Let's hold closed session items on the desk.
On the continued agenda, item number 56 is a item for which public hearing has not been held, and it's a report from the Office of Finance.
And I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council on item 56. We shall deem the public hearing open and closed. Members wishing to call item 56 special? Ms. Gruhl calls item 56 special. Next item, please.
Next items 57 are closed sessions. Do you wish to hold those on the
We're
desk with
holding
the
closed
others?
session items on the desk.
Okay, going back to the items called special, item number 14 was called special by Councilmember Labange.
Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much, members. This is another way to help the observatory now under reconstruction and expansion, but to allow the Friends of the Observatory to get a little revenue by selling the old historic chairs that maybe James Dean once sat in. I ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Other members wishing to be heard on item 14? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 21 was called special by Councilmember Holden.
Mr. Holden, may I ask you to press your button, please?
Mr. President, members, I've been suggested that the police department will not be available until tomorrow, so we continue it for one day.
Members request to continue this matter for one day. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, item 21 is continued for one day to tomorrow, December 18th. Next item, please.
Next item is item number 22, called special by Councilmember Hahn.
Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, the only reason I called this special was because I want to keep announcing the fact that we are really paying these $1,000 rewards to people who are helping us out in the community identify those who are tagging and putting graffiti on people's businesses and property. A lot of times we pass ordinances here on the City Council, and I think a lot of people think it never happens. We don't really follow through. So this is another example of us actually paying $1,000 to someone who helped us apprehend someone who was painting graffiti. So we want to make sure the community, the residents of Los Angeles know that this exists, and we need your help in trying to ultimately eradicate graffiti from in and around Los Angeles. So if you can provide any information to the police department, if you see anything, if you hear anything, if you know anything, we want you to call the police and let them know about taggers and graffiti. I don't want to use the word artists, but those who put graffiti on buildings. So we do follow through. We will pay you $1,000 if you can help us apprehend taggers. Thank you. Or call my office, or call Councilman Holden's office.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Other members wishing to be heard on item 22? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, item number 26, called special by Councilmember Holden. This is the Rule 3 motion.
Mr. Holden, may I ask you to press your button, please? Chair recognizes Mr. Holden.
Mr. President, Mr. Deaton, come to the table, please. Mr. Deaton, this is on the policy, not on the legislative intent of the motion, Mr. President, just on the policy. It was always my understanding, since the few years I've been here, Mr. Deaton, not nearly as long as you have, that once an office is declared vacant, then it's never been the case where you put a person's name in the motion to make that happen. I think the motion is, the clerk says, or the president in this particular case, says the office is vacant and therefore are there any nominations? And that's when the nominations are made, unless I stand corrected.
Mr. Holden, Mike Carey, the city clerk. Basically, the motion before you does one thing and one thing only. It suggests that the council wants to elect a new president pro tem.
Right.
Pursuant to the charter, under Charter Section 243, in order to fill that position, you must have an election.
Correct.
You do not have to have an election, but if you're going to name a person president pro tem, you must elect that person.
That is correct.
And historically, although we haven't had this happen for several years, historically, the council uses a roll call vote alphabetically,
Well,
and
the
each
president should
member...
listen. Mr. President, go ahead.
And each member will announce who they're
That is correct.
electing. Correct.
That was my understanding, so I never...
The motion that before you, I think, has a member's name in it, but the moving part is simply to call an election.
Call an election. Mr. President, if it's the position of the council that this office is now vacant and the roll call is required to elect the member of the president pro tem of this legislative body, then I'm in a position to say I move that Cindy Misakowski become the president pro tem and call the roll. Another nomination.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Chair recognizes Ms. Galanter.
Yeah, I also had a question. Is the motion that's on the agenda simply to declare we will hold an election, or is it to actually hold the election?
It's, I think, to say that if you don't want to adopt the motion, you don't have to have the election.
No, I understand that, but we went through this when John died.
Right.
And the question was, what happens, do we hold an election or not? And we went over the rules very carefully. And the rules said that if the council, anybody on the council could call for an election, and if I remember this correctly, if someone calls for an election, the council doesn't have to adopt a motion, let's have an election. It is automatically agendized for, I think it's the next council meeting, so that one day somebody would say, okay, we want to have an election, and any council member could do that, and then the next time we would just have the election.
This is, I think, fulfilling that requirement.
So this is not, yes, let's have an election, and then we have an election. This is the election.
This is, do we want an election, then let's have the election.
Okay, now,
You can do that.
That being the case, I heard Mr. Holden's nomination, but I also heard Mr. Carey reminding us that typically what is done is that we simply call one at a time and people say who they're voting for.
That is up to the council.
That's up to the council,
on
okay.
each and
Thank you.
Right.
Has not been done yet.
Right.
I think,
Mr. Carey, would you explain to them the process?
or before that, Mr. Holden.
Do I want to be
Just for
pro tem?
clarification,
Not this
I
week.
believe part of Ms. Galanter's question was, we act on the motion today, and is the vote taken today, or are we agendizing the vote for a future date?
My recommendation is that you vote on whether you're going to have an election. 8 votes will pass that motion. If that motion passes, as I mentioned before, historically, you've gone around alphabetically.
Right, but taking that
But
second vote today.
if the motion does not pass, is it not the case that Ms. Mizakowski simply moves up?
No.
No, it is not.
No.
She assumes the duties, but she is not the President pro tem pursuant to the charter.
Other members wishing to be heard? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please open the roll.
On what?
On
Whether or
item
not-
28.
Whether or
No,
not
no,
to
no,
have
no,
an
no.
election.
No.
Whether you're going to have an election.
Excuse me, item
Whether you're gonna have an
26. Item 26. Roll is open. All members have an opportunity to vote. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes, 1 no.
Okay. Then now, according to the rules of the Los Angeles City Council, historically the council has elected the President pro tem by an oral roll call vote taken in alphabetical order. Unless I hear an objection, the roll of the council will be called by the council clerk for the purpose of electing the President pro tem. As your name is called, please respond by naming the member of the City Council you wish to elect to the office of the President pro tem of the City Council. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Burnson,
Mr. Burnton.
Galanter, Garcetti, Gruhl, Hahn, Holden,
Mizakowski.
Labange,
Councilmember Misakowski.
Misakowski, Pacheco, Perry,
Absent.
Reyes, Weiss,
Absent.
Zine, Padilla.
Misakowski.
Councilmember Misakowski.
Madam Clerk, for the record, the results, please.
Councilmember Misakowski had 9 votes.
Congratulations, Ms. Misakowski.
Thank you, colleagues. In the next 6.5 months, which is the remainder of this term, I think I've talked with many of you, and I know that foremost in everyone's mind is the issue of the council putting forward an agenda, the council able to talk together. Leadership doesn't come with a title, doesn't come with a leadership name. Leadership doesn't come with a title name. Everyone on this council is a leader, each of you in many, many areas that are going to be vital and important in putting this city back together after the election that we just went through, to really move forward on the charter changes, to move forward on community, to move forward on setting forward the agenda, not necessarily governed by the agenda items that we have on a normal council day, but real hard-working agenda items with our neighborhood councils, dealing with the issues of housing, dealing with the issues of neighborhood communities, dealing with the issue of bringing the services to the communities in a more explainable, rational way, and essentially moving forward together. And so I look forward to these next 6.5 months.
Congratulations. Chair recognizes Ms. Galanter.
Congratulations. I would like to say, however, I don't think the city needed to be put back together. The city had an election, not a civil war. We had a series of elections within the council. We did not have a civil war, and I wish you guys would get over saying that the city was falling apart and that what we've done in the last 6.5 months is put it back together. What we've done is held a series of elections, which is what we do in a democracy. And we will be doing it again in March. We will be doing it again in June. In California, we do it all the time. It's an election. It's not a civil war.
Thank you. Any further questions on item 26? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, next order of business, please.
The next order, item number 29, was called special inadvertently by Councilmember Gruhl, and she advised that that matter can proceed.
Ms. Gruhl? Further comments?
No, the item can move forward.
Okay. Other members wishing to be heard on item 29? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 48, called special inasmuch as there are cards from the public.
Item 48 now before us. Let's begin with the public hearing on item 48. The council calls forward at this time Mr. Mario Pichardo, followed by Ivan Newman, Paula Rick, and Candace Caldwell. Members of the public, If I can have your attention, please. The council is calling forward Mario Pichardo, followed by Ivan Newman, Paula Rick, and Candace Caldwell. This is your opportunity to address the council on item number 48. If I can ask you to please line up behind the podium. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Candace Caldwell, and I'm a resident on Sycamore Street. And regarding this project, I find that it is displacing 80 families, and it's very, very difficult for us. This has been going on almost 4 years, and I'm between a rock and a hard place. I don't know what to do, when to do it, and I should be thinking about retiring. Instead, I have to think about where am I going to be living. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is Mr. Pichardo with us? Please come forward.
My name is Paula Rich, and I am a business owner in the area since 1965. And this is a project that's supposed to be for community redevelopment and economical. But for me, it's a disaster. I have lost business. I don't know which direction to go in because this is turning out to be a long-term project. So I'm speaking in behalf of myself as a business owner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pichardo.
Good morning, Mario Pichardo, Adams La Brea Development LLC. I'm general counsel to the developer. I just wanted to make some general comments. I know that there's members of the public that are frustrated with the pace of development. I want to apologize for that. We're frustrated. We've had a lot of delays with our tenants. We're very close to having signed letters of commitment with our 2 anchor tenants. We have a relocation plan that's completed. We believe that everyone who would have to be relocated would be made whole. This project will create approximately 420 new jobs for an area that desperately needs them. It will help eliminate blight and help reduce crime. We'd like an extension. It's very important to our project. I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Ivan Newman, followed by Esperanza Sanchez, D. Malcolm Carson, and George Duncan. Mr. Newman.
Good morning. I'm Ivan Newman. I'm a property owner, member of Project Area Committee, and speaking about blight, this development contributed to blight. No one can improve their property. No one has been able to do anything to close up the alleys that need to be closed up, do any improvements. There are people there suffering that need to improve their homes, where they live, and we're all threatened by eminent domain. We shouldn't be threatened. This is a free country. We bought our property. We all work very, very hard for it, and this cloud is just hanging over us from year after year without having the ability to do what we work so hard for, is to improve our property, that can improve our life, that it could improve the community, that it would improve the city. And thank you very much for bringing this motion on.
Thank you. Ms. Esperanza Sanchez? She's not here, or she passes. D. Malcolm Carson, followed by George Duncan and D. Blythe.
Hello, my name is Malcolm Carson, and I'm a resident actually of Village Green, which is not too far from the project area. I believe that in order for there to be successful redevelopment in our neighborhood, the developer and the city and the CRA must work with the community development plan that preserves and enhances the existing neighborhood, brings much needed jobs and economic activity to the area, and addresses the urgent need in our community for affordable housing. I believe that the city should look long and hard about demolishing one single unit of decent and safe affordable housing. Too many neighborhoods have been destroyed by development projects that have ripped apart the social fabric of communities by demolishing housing in the name of improving those neighborhoods. In addition, given the citywide and regional housing affordability crisis, there are additional reasons not to tear down valuable existing units without an adequate replacement housing plan, and that's replacement, not just relocation. Finally, I believe that good development projects always result from a collaboration between the community, the city, and developers. Without everybody having their input on it, development projects can be too one-sided, one way or the other, and they don't actually bring the benefits that they're often sold as. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Duncan, followed by Dee Blythe, Claudio Mota, and Jim Miller.
Yeah, my name is George Duncan, and I live in the neighborhood, and I'm concerned about the relocation of all the residents in the area and for housing and housing for the people that's going to be uprooted and moved out.
Thank you very much. Ms. Blythe?
Hi, I'm Dee Blythe. I was born and raised in this community. We love our neighborhood. Yes, we do have a lot of issues in our neighborhood. We have a lot of problems. We have a lot of homeless. We have a lot of drugs. We have a lot of prostitutes. But we also have a lot of people that have been in that neighborhood for a long time and have established themselves as viable community members. By tearing down their houses and not giving them another house to move in, I don't see the benefit of a project that would do something like that to our community. My son, right here, he's 5. We don't have a park in our community for him to play in. We're asking that from the developer. They're not really into parks, they said. At our town hall meeting that we held, we asked them for certain things. They're not willing to give us those things. And they said to us that if there's something that you want that we can't give you, then maybe you need to find another developer. That was their words, not our words. They said that to us. So we're saying maybe we do. Or maybe they need to come and ask us what we want, listen to what we want, and really think hard about what they can do to give us what we want, okay? That's just part one, okay. I've emailed Sims, the developer. I've emailed Delvac, their lawyer. No response. Just basically asking for something now. We need jobs in our community right now. We do not want a food for less in our neighborhood. We would like a nice grocery store, there's already Ralph's there. Maybe you could fix that one up a little bit, or give us an Albertsons or a Vons, or, something that's nice, where the foods are nice, not the leftovers. I'm sorry, that's what food for less is. It's really the leftovers from Ralph's, so we don't want that. We want to basically have our request heard by Sims. If it takes a forum like this for them to hear us, something's wrong. We've had 3 meetings and still everything is being put off, things are changed, the proposals changed, we changed this, we changed that. Either stick to what we want or walk away from the project. That's pretty much what we're asking for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Claudio Mota, followed by Jim Miller and Charles Blythe.
Mi nombre es Claudio Mota. Y,
My name is Claudia Mota.
y yo vivo en Proyecto Adams La Vea.
I live where the site of the project, Adams La Brea project will be planned for.
Y yo estoy muy preocupado porque ya son más de 4 años esperando por este proyecto. Y la verdad me siento preocupado porque no sé qué es lo que va a pasar, si se va a llevar a cabo o no.
I'm kind of worried. It's been 4 years since the planning of this project. Kind of frustrated with the whole process of not knowing what's happening, when it will happen or not.
Me gustaría que si se lleva a cabo, se llevara lo más pronto posible para terminar con esta odisea, porque la verdad, en la noche no puedo ni dormir.
If this happens, if this project happens, that it happen as soon as possible, because we can't even sleep at night worrying about this, whether we're going to be in our homes or not.
Me gustaría que si se lleva a cabo, que se hiciera como había prometido el Señor, que se construyeran viviendas.
You know, it's important that if this happens, that that this project include housing for us.
Y pues que fueran a bajo costo, porque la verdad ya allí las personas que vivimos somos personas ya de edad avanzada y no podemos pagar una renta o un pago alto, elevado.
And that also that the housing be affordable housing, because people who are living in that area are, like myself, of an older age and cannot afford a full mortgage.
Y gracias por escucharme.
And thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Mr. Jim Miller.
Hi, my name is Jim Miller. I'm the president of the Western Heights Neighborhood Association. I'm also a member of the CRA Project Area Committee. Western Heights is a historic preservation overlay zone that's just to the east of this proposed project. We are very sensitive to houses being knocked down in this community when there is such a shortage of affordable housing. We read about it every day. Yet, for the past 3 years, this proposal has advocated knocking down several homes and displacing over 80 families. Part of the project proposal was to include housing. Now that has been taken away. The people that live in this community depend on each other. Their children go to the local school. There's a church right across the street. Not having housing is unacceptable. Also, as you've heard, nobody wants a food for less in their community. The tenants that this developer has put together are not tenants that the community wants. Yes, they do want jobs. Yes, they want the businesses fixed up, but they also need a park. They also need the city to allow them to fix up their houses, which they haven't been able to do for the past 3 years. We are in support of Councilman Holden's proposal. We hope that this will be the end of this project and we can move on with something better. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Charles Blythe.
Thank you. My name is Charles Blythe. I'm a resident in the neighborhood. And it's been said many times, a lot of the concerns that the residents have, primarily an issue is the housing. The representative of the developer has said they put together a plan, but I personally haven't seen it. It's a plan that maybe meets their specifications, but it doesn't meet the needs of our community, as well as there's been spoken of things like a park in the neighborhood, recreation centers, things like this. Certainly we need development in the area, we need jobs and so forth, but it's far better to wait until we find a plan that's going to meet the real needs of this community rather than going forward to proceed with a development that's a bad plan. It's not just an issue of build buildings and bring jobs. It's an issue of really impacting an entire community for the good, for the long term. We're talking about something that's for the very long term. Also, in closing, I just want to say thank you to Councilman Holden for being on top of this issue and speaking to the needs of our community.
This concludes public comment for this item.
Councilmember, could I make just a couple of brief comments, because there were some things
I'll
that I
give you
think
30
were-
seconds. You had a chance to
Okay.
speak earlier.
As far as support in the community, I'd like to point out that the PAC, which is an elected body, the Project Area Committee, voted 10-2 to support extension of our ENA. So there is a lot of support in the community for our tenants. There's a lot of support in the community for our project. Housing is something that we're receptive to including as part of our project. We have identified a site that we think is suitable that would include up to 74 affordable housing units. The relocation plan has been available for months. I can get anybody who wants one a copy. Anyone who's going to be relocated will be made whole.
Okay. Thank you very much. This concludes public comment for this item. Members wishing to be heard on item 48. Mr. Holden, I ask you to press your button, please.
Mr. President, members, This project has been out there for 4 years. And when I was a member of the California State Senate, we were always cautioned by the Legislative Council that you cannot take property from property owners. They call it taking of the property. If you deny a property owner the right to develop the property for maximum best use, they must be compensated for that taking. That is law. However, we have another law that says that when you have a blighted area, for the good of the community, we create, the state authorized local government to create a redevelopment agency, therefore redevelopment areas, for the purpose of removing the blighted area and improving the quality of life for that specific area. The people have come to us repeatedly and said, we want park. Then therefore there should be some open space area for Pocket Park, which is not included. This developer has not been, obviously been working with the community. That is a requirement. That's a stipulated agreement before the council signs off on it and say, you have the authority to go out per bid and do this. They ask for housing, which we need. If you're going to remove some housing, you got to replace some housing. And it's got to be affordable. You must hear what they are saying. And you know, food for less has been suggested in other parts of the district, and the people have absolutely said no. In fact, at Midtown, that was suggested, they said no. And they came in with a great store, 52,000 square feet, fully equipped, everything is there, and the neighbors love it and it's profitable. The largest store of that chain in Southern California, 52,000 square feet in Midtown. And these people in this area that I represent will accept no less. Understand that. There will not be a project without housing, and the housing must be affordable. Understand that as well. And I must tell you this, that the people who are there must have a clear understanding that they are not prevented from going out looking for other areas, other people to work with them on improving their property while we wait for you to develop it and to have it be inclusive. They must know that there will be no redress to this issue because they can go out and do something. Anybody here from CRA who can answer that question? Come on down here and hold my time. I'm sorry, Mr. President. We must get a report. We must clear the air on this issue.
Ed Soule from the CRA in Mark Vella. What is the question, Councilman?
Is it the fact the people who are property owners in the area must be given information regarding their rights currently, even though this area has been declared a redevelopment area, their rights to develop it for the maximum best use or engage in any other. They're not restricted from doing that, is that not correct?
That's correct.
But then say for the record, then what is the law?
The law is that the people have an opportunity to build a property, respond, and it is also the law that we listen through the empowerment process to the community to give them what they want. The project area PAC and the community have been kept up to date on this project, Councilman.
If I were a property owner in the area and I wanted to develop something, will I have the right to do it even though this proposed clot is over my property?
At this present time, what we have is an exclusive right to negotiate. The exclusive right was set for a 180 days with milestones for the first 90 days and milestones to be met in the additional 90 days. Currently, under the process, when there is an exclusive right, there is no negotiation with any other developer or proposed property owner on that site during the exclusive rights.
What is the right of the property owner? What is the right of the property owner to negotiate with? They can't negotiate with anyone else but that developer?
A property owner can come into the agency even during the period of an exclusive right and propose to the agency a development on their particular property. We in turn will review their proposed development to ascertain whether it meets the criteria of the redevelopment agency and whether it comply with the land use and everything in order to move forward with that development.
So what you're saying is a property owner can and not deny the right to develop their property if they choose to do so.
That is what I'm saying. A property owner, even during the exclusive right period, can come forward and submit to us a proposal and plus the plans for that proposal, and the agency will review it.
Has this information been transmitted to the property owners that they can do that?
Yes, it has, sir.
All right, Mr. President, I want to offer, should I push my button again? Or?
Just go ahead and conclude, please.
An amendment, 48A, which says that this developer has put some time in. The residents here stating their point of view, and I'm going to make some recommendations to the administrator, that we urge the CRA administrator to exercise his option to extend the right to negotiate with the Adams La Brea Commercial Development Corporation for an additional 60 days only, drop dead, from December 6th to February 5th, which is not too far away, and that the CRA administrator be instructed to inform all property owners at Adams and La Brea property site of their development rights and notify CRA administrator that the proposed food for less is not acceptable to the community, which they have heard, and that the proposed project must include housing component. And I want to add one other thing that's not in this amendment, and that is, and a pocket park. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. That amending motion has been circulated. We have the maker of the motion and a second. Is there any objection to the amending motion? If not, then we shall consider.
Excuse me, Mr. President, does the maker of the motion wish to make that a substitute motion to be adopted in lieu of what's on the agenda?
Okay, so this is a substitute, not an amending
Which
motion.
include the pocket park, which is not in. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Everybody clear? If everybody's clear, then Madam Clerk, would you please open the roll on Mr. Holden's substitute motion? Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Substitute motion 48 is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 50 was called special by Councilmember Galanter, and there is a motion 50A that has been distributed.
Ms. Galanter.
Thank you. The reason I called this special is that the legislative analyst has prepared for us, or had caused to be prepared for us, a virtual tour of the Van Nuys Civic Center, and I think you'll enjoy this because it does give an indication of what we're going to be able to do there, and it's fun watching this thing go. So, Mr. Deaton, do you want to describe what we're doing here?
What you see is the Van Nuys Civic Center, and on the right is the existing City Hall there, and the left is the new Marvin Browdy Constituent Center, and that building will begin occupancy this coming spring, and there is underneath just to the left of the existing City Hall, underneath there is subterranean parking. And as we come closer to the, looking at Old City Hall in Van Nuys City Hall, you can see the existing situation where you have a parking and you have some existing buildings. And if we could go up a little. Yes, sir.
This has a question. Does this get shown out to the public on 35 or just in here? No.
Are we finished with the point of...
Point of information.
Okay, thanks. Anyway, you can see that in the, as you look at the back part of Van Nuys City Hall, Hall, there's a cooling tower, and then as you come more towards this direction, there's a parking lot and a couple of structures. What we're planning to do, and I switch now to our proposal, is to provide for the extension of the mall coming from in front of Van Nuys, from the Browdy Constituency Center. The mall would continue to the street, and we eliminate the cooling tower and provide a more attractive mall situation as it approaches Van Nuys City Hall. And as a part of that, in order to ensure enough parking, we're providing for, in this action, subterranean parking right underneath those trees and that mall situation. Also, in the refurbishment of Van Nuys City Hall, on the left side, you see the extension of the 2-story or 3 stories there of City Hall. We're going to lift the roof about 2 feet. It won't be visible from the outside, but this will allow us to put a meeting room in the existing City Hall to seat up to 300 plus people for community meetings in that area. That's in addition to I think it's around 150 in the Marvin Browdy Constituency Center. So this would be kind of the anchor of our revitalized Van Nuys Civic Center. The Marvin Browdy Constituency Center is people that are currently in Old City Hall will move over to there, as I said, in early spring, and then we will provide for a more constituent-friendly situation in the Van Nuys City Hall and a mall with subterranean parking, so parking is close to the meeting areas and also to the facilities there in the Civic Center, which includes the police and city clerk and building and safety and the library, etc. And we think that it provides a much more user-friendly facility. And so we would recommend approval of item number 50 as a result.
To move, yes.
Thank you. Ms. Galanter?
Yes, first of all, I'd like to move item 50 with the amendment 50A, which will provide the money to do the parking. But I want to thank the Legislative Analyst's Office for helping find a way to do this so that we can transform the restoration of the old City Hall into something that really does have a civic component in the back and not just another parking lot, the symbol of Los Angeles. We really want to transform the symbol of Los Angeles from a surface parking lot to a plaza that is a friendly, community, attractive place to be, something that cities used to have and some towns still do, but we don't happen to have one at the Van Nuys City Hall, and we are going to by the time we finish this project. So the parking is actually just the first step, and what you see on the top is a relatively sterile rendition of what I hope will ultimately be a much more varied and attractive landscaped place to be, and we're working on positioning trees so that the shade is where we want it to be, so that in the valley in the summer people can be comfortable outdoors. But none of this would have been possible without a lot of help from the Legislative Analyst's Office and so on. I want to thank you and your staff and the guys who did the computer stuff and almost got arrested doing it, because this really does, I think, help us see where we're going. So I move approval of 50 with 50A included.
Thank you. Ms. Misikowski.
I'd like to thank the CLA as well and Ms. Glander for bringing this in. It's really wonderful to see this, and as we saw in the before pictures, although we've got the great new building being built and the wonderful new plaza, we had this little unfinished piece, which was the area behind that had been part of temporary trailers which have been in place around for the last 6 or 7 years for building and safety, cooling towers, parking, really back of building, back of house, that led then extend to more of the plaza. And this really completes it. It puts in parking that is needed closer to the building itself. This was money that was put aside in the parking fund for Van Nuys, but a lot of it was planned to do something else, to refurbish an older retrofit parking structure about 2 blocks away. But to really put it into this, to do this now, and really create, again, this wonderful, vitalized municipal center, which is adjacent to the courthouse, adjacent to the police station, adjacent to the state building. It really is, it always has been the center of the valley. It's been the center of the valley as a government complex, and it is bringing a modern facility, modern technology, and beautification in this community that always has been the heart of the valley, but the heart of the valley that is serving the city as a central point for government services, technologically linked, and now artistically and community quality of life based and linked. What you're not seeing is the front of the building, that big boulevard that's running down the front of this is Van Nuys Boulevard, a major artery in the San Fernando Valley. The frontage of the building itself and the frontage of the new building with some pedestrian serving uses. You can go into the front of the building, get your copies printed if you like, get your coffee if you like, and then go in the back of the plaza and talk with your wonderful city employees who will be providing your city services. It's a great idea. This is great. This is the front. This is Van Nuys Boulevard. A great new facility soon to open, and now we're going to augment it with the parking that was always long planned as part of the utilization of the commercial center, utilization of the city service center.
Thank you, Ms. Musica. To be heard. Seeing none. Seeing one, Mr. D.
I'd just like to make a comment. This is a technology that we cooperate with UCLA and I think it's urban planning, and it provides for a virtual modeling of a proposal, and then as he'll switch back to the way it is now, it gives you an opportunity to, we've used it in a couple other facilities, first time we brought it to council, to give, we used it in this, actually we used it in this room to locate cameras and etc. Anyway, for those things in which it's very difficult to visualize how things look today and how they will look if you make certain changes, you can put architectural drawings in and give a feel for how things might look, and it does provide, I think, a good way to visualize major shifts in property like this one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great tool. Without objection, we'll consider item 50 as amended. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, the city attorney has requested that one of the closed session items, item 54, be referred to EQ committee for discussion.
Members requested to refer item 54 to the Environmental Quality Committee. Seeing no objection, so ordered.
Item number 56 was called special by Councilmember Gruhl.
Ms. Gruhl.
Take my microphone. There we go. This is an item, and I appreciate on Friday your quick response to the business tax issue. As we discussed on Friday, that the small business is the backbone of our local economy, and that we believe strongly that the city should not chase away business, but actually keep business in the city of Los Angeles. We talked about gross receipts and net income, not capital gains, but actually gross receipts. We passed, and I again appreciate that we in concept and policy would support a blanket waiver for penalties and interest for a group of individuals. As you all know, that our goal ultimately was to encourage compliance Again, and I want to say that again, it was ultimately to encourage compliance with the business tax laws, not to penalize individuals. I have received several emails and letters, actually since Friday, people who watch Channel 35 or read the paper, pleased that we had taken this action and wanting to make sure that we also understood the gross receipts tax issue. What I am asking today is for us to move that the council direct the Office of Finance to waive penalty fees and interest charges for small businesses and individuals who owe the city $500 or less in business taxes. Setting the limit at $500 will guarantee that we target small businesses and individuals likely unaware of the tax obligation. And I'd like to, Mr. President, if I could call up the Mayor's Office and the Office of Finance and City Attorney real quickly, if we could, on this item. And one thing I want to make clear, which we discussed last week again, is that gross receipts are the taxes are on how much money is taken in, not how much each individual is paid. And we also have the CLA available if we have any questions. Is that correct, Ron? $500 per year. Thank you very much for that clarification. So if I could first ask our Office of Finance, because we have had discussions with them since Friday, taken all the input from my colleagues to come up with this $500 figure and believe it is reasonable. And if you could, please, Antoinette, and hold my last 38 seconds.
Sure. Antoinette Cristobal, Office of Finance, the $500 amount is relative to the average amount of payment that we have received with our annual tax filing. For the tax year of 2002, the average receipt or payment was $500 or less, which represents about 2/3 or 66% of the total population base of the businesses and accounts that are in our tax and permit system. That $500 payment relates to about $85,000 or less of gross receipts per taxpayer.
And one other question, I think, both from the answering probably from Office of Finance and also City Attorney. You currently have the authority, and this is, I know, a little repetitive from last Friday, but you currently have the authority of up to $5,000 in fees and penalties and principal to waive on a case-by-case basis. The action we're taking today is a blanket waiver for those that fit under the $500 per year category we've described. However, that does not take away an individual's right under the current ordinance to request that waiver in the future.
That is correct. Based on our tax code, I do have authority to waive up to $5,000 total in interest, penalty, and principal. It has been the practice of the Office of Finance, however, to not waive the interest and principal. But I do have that authority up to $5,000. I've been granted that by the City Attorney's Office.
Right, that's with the concurrence of the City Attorney's Office. The approval is.
Okay. Again, what we're trying to do here today is simplify and simplify and simplify and get people into the system and not to intimidate them into the system, and that's our hope today. I don't know, Mr. Kevlis, if you would like to add anything, because we have been in discussions and the Mayor's support on us taking this action today.
Yes, thank you. Jonathan Kevlis, Deputy Mayor of Economic Development from Irhan. I just want to reiterate that the goal of this entire program is to increase compliance. It is to increase the number of people filing lawfully with the city. In other words, the goal is not necessarily to achieve for the city as big a windfall as possible today, but rather to have an increase in ongoing revenues with more people filing lawfully in the years ahead. We believe that a waiver of the nature that Councilmember Grewal has proposed will help achieve that. People, rather than being stunned by an unexpected tax bill, if showing the commitment from the city, the council, and the mayor that we will waive part of that bill, we believe will bring more people into the system, and once again, that is the ultimate goal of this program.
And, Mr. President, one last thing, and I know there may be other comments. So the action that we're asking today is to approve the $500 per year threshold, and that, again, individuals have a right above that within the law to do on a case-by-case basis. The last thing I would like to direct is also the Office of Finance to send a letter kind of clarifying some of the confusion that has occurred in the last bit of time and explain some of the things that were not in the original letter, to communicate with our businesses what this means. And that would conclude my comments and ask for an aye vote from my colleagues today to send that clear message. We want business in the city of Los Angeles.
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl. I have Mr. Reyes, followed by Mr. Burnson and Mr. Garcetti. Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. One of my main concerns is our approach to outreach. If we go about this in a traditional way, I think we're going to miss a big slice of the folks that I know are, like I said before, the main economic engine in our city. So I would hope that, and I'm not sure this is an action to take on behalf of the council as a friendly amendment to get a report back on the approach, how you're going to connect with getting the message out there, what networks you're going to touch, what kinds of vehicles you'll be using. We have a whole movement for the past 5-6 years of the development of business investment districts. We have the chambers, and then you have the non-traditional approaches, which are the PTAs, the churches, the small business folks that work in the bazaars and the fairs and the carnivals, the vendors. I mean, these are the small business sector, you know, the vendors around the parks. How we engage them is going to be critical. So the multilingual and multicultural aspect of this is going to be just as crucial. I'm not sure this is the appropriate time to get that kind of feedback, or maybe we just talk individually out of this forum and get a feel for how you're going to approach this. Because right now, I believe it's like mass mailing, correct? I mean, we send out a mailer, depending who has a identified as a business person through the state, and that's the vehicle we've been using, but I think we're missing a whole slice of folks that we're not touching bases with. Any thoughts on that?
Yes. There are two outreach efforts I think we need to talk about. One is related to this particular campaign. And Councilmember Gruhl's suggestion to send out mailers has a cost to it that we need to consider. I don't think that we rule it out, but just need to consider that as part of what she is discussing. As far as ongoing, I think that's what you're referring to, Councilman. On an ongoing basis, obviously there is a lot more that we can do, because obviously not enough has been done. A lot more we can do as a city family through the council offices, any way that we have any communication on a business basis or on a proactive outreach basis with businesses and individuals, many of whom by city definition have businesses. So it is through PTAs, it is through councils, it is multilingual. I don't think we're ready to discuss exactly what that program would be, but I think we all recognize that the lack of compliance and the people just not being aware of this campaign in particular demonstrates that we need to step up our efforts and have a more strategic effort in terms of how we make people aware of the business tax and other city obligations and services in general.
If I can also add, we have an Office of the Taxpayer Advocate who is available to help taxpayers have them understand or explain to them about our business tax code. We have a number of staff in the Office of Finance who are bilingual, and we certainly could make ourselves available to meet with your constituents and other council members' constituents to talk about the City of Los Angeles Business Tax Code.
Well, I know the mayor's office came to Highland Park, we jointly with District 1, had a really good workshop over at Ramona Hall. We invited businesses about how they can interact with the city and touch bases with the notion of contracts, how get involved with the city. From that regard, in light of this subject, perhaps we should look at a concerted effort to bring together those kinds of groups again. given this subject matter, and see how we can bring in the folks that we need to participate and fulfill the law. So looking forward with that discussion, and hopefully we have a more comprehensive strategy in how we deal with this notion of diversity and multilingual audiences. Thank you.
I also wanted to point out the City Attorney's Office has a settlement bureau which is also staffed by a bilingual person for business tax cases and can deal with the individual taxpayers on a case-by-case basis.
We should fold this in. Thank you very much.
Mr. Burnson.
You know, it's strange that you're worried about what the cost of a mailer would be now. You weren't worried about it before when you sent it out to everybody. So all of a sudden, when it comes to clarifying it for the public, you're worried about the cost. Second of all, I think that you're picking on, for those people that are small businesses, many of them who basically are maids, who do housekeeping, who do things of this nature. You're picking on the lowest economic level in the city. And obviously, there are some real ramifications even on the upper levels on what our business license fee has done to keep business out of Los Angeles. What is really needed, members of this council, because you're going to be here, some of us are leaving, but what you really need to tackle, if you want to have a vibrant city and you want to attract major companies here, many of our companies from the San Fernando Valley Industrial Belt moved out into Ventura County because of the business license fee and other things and other restrictions. We need to establish a more friendly business climate in this city, and you need to take another look at this entire picture. This is not the way to go. Trying to squeeze out every little penny. You will do much better economically by bringing business in and creating jobs and a vibrant economy than you will by trying to squeeze the nickels out of the poor, small individuals who are basically being targeted here. I understand that I don't know the clarification on this, but if somebody works on a commission and they work out of somebody else's office, but they're paid on a commission, you're pursuing those people also as an independent business?
If they receive a 1099 form for that particular service and reported it on their state and federal Schedule C as business-related income, it would have been picked up through the matching process with the state.
Yes, but that also conflicts with the business that they're working for that pays their gross receipts tax on their entire business. So what you're actually doing is double jeopardy. You know, I think you need to take another look at this entire picture. This whole thing is ill-conceived, and you should have exercised a little better judgment before you jumped into this thing. What you've already done is antagonized a lot of people in the city, and you've already put business on notice who already may have thought about locating here, or who may be thinking about leaving, that it might be a good time to do so. Members of the council, please, after I leave or before I leave, take a look at this entire picture. This business license fee needs to be looked at and made equitable so that it will keep people in Los Angeles and attract them rather than drive them out.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just had a question, and I'm sorry if I was on a phone call right then, if this was answered. Do you have estimates yet of what, we're estimating about $3 million would be taken in from AB 63 compliance this year, is that correct?
That is correct, of which 75% will go to tax reform and 25% to housing.
And I completely agree and want to agree with what Councilmember Grewal is doing here. I think it's the right thing for business, it's the right thing for small businesses here in the city of Los Angeles, and I want to applaud her leadership on it. I do also want to know what the fiscal impact is, not because it affects all the other things that we do with the general fund. Obviously, this was targeted monies to go to the Housing Trust Fund and for further business tax reform. But do we have any estimate of how much less it would be?
Councilman Garcetti, because the State Franchise Tax Board did not provide us with information as to the incomes stated for those persons that were not filing with the city but did file with the state and the federal governments. That $3 million figure is a rough estimate. I think it's really hard to say how much it will be. We have a statistic. We have a little bit of information so far on what's been sent in to date. I would say that the sample is statistically irrelevant at this point, so we can't even use that as a gauge. But what we can say is that waiving interest and penalties will reduce by 38% the total revenues that would have been collected through this program. And we can...
And here's sorry to interrupt, here's the piece, because I heard that kind of as an estimate that maybe it would be somewhere around 1 million of the 3 million. But it's not 38% of the entire amount we're collecting, it's 38% of the amount over this threshold, under this threshold, correct?
If you look at, just going to do some run some calculations, and the numbers are consistent. Waiving interest and penalties, if you owe 500 or 1,000 or 60 bucks, waiving interest and penalties will take away 38% of that total.
Correct, but we're not dealing with 100% of all the AAB 63 compliance cases here. Obviously, some people can't appeal above, but we're not going to be, presumably.
That's correct.
So it should be lower than that. It shouldn't be 38% of the overall pie. It should be about 38% for sure of the ones under the threshold, and maybe some cases above.
That's true.
Okay.
If I could add.
Go ahead.
If I could add, what we're estimating, if we were to waive interest and penalty for gross receipts at, say, up to 100,000 or less, the estimated revenue loss associated with the $3 million that was budgeted is about $1 million. So we would expect to generate about $2 million of the $3 million.
At least, okay, as a minimum. I'd also like to just put forward as a suggestion, not as a formal amendment, that some of the monies that we do bring in for business tax reform efforts, that we talk with BTAC about the possibility of, if there are future changes that the city makes, that some of the capacity for the Office of Finance or whoever would be sending out a letter or doing something like that, that would be an appropriate place to spend it. Because in future years, as we change the tax codes, we will have some of these hiccups where we don't have the human infrastructure to match what the changes are. And if 100% of that business tax reform money just goes towards, badly needed consulting, et cetera, for looking at tax reform, that's one thing. But I would like our departments to have the capacity, Office of Finance and others, to supplement whatever human infrastructure they have to make sure that goes forward as smoothly as possible. Thank you.
Mr. Labange.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask our offices here and the Deputy Mayor, in other cities throughout the country, they have this similar type of problem. Could you relate any of those experiences in your knowledge?
Are you speaking to trying to increase compliance, or are you speaking to the changes in
all of it, the whole gamut of trying to collect taxes from businesses? Because I think what Mr. Burton said is so true about Los Angeles has a reputation of being not friendly to business, and you have people who move out of the area because they make a business decision. And I want to know what other cities have done in your research and looking at other areas to combat this and this type of problem. And I know this is a new thing that we're doing as far as our cooperative effort with federal and state tax people.
Councilman Labange, your thoughts are right in line with the recommendations of the Business Tax Advisory Committee. One of their proposals, two of their proposals relate directly to that. One of them is to request council to reinstate a now defunct ad hoc committee on business tax reform, to look at these very issues. The thoughts of BTAC being that the Budget and Finance Committee has a very difficult time and spends a lot of time figuring out how to best allocate funds. And because of that, the BTAC feels that a separate subcommittee is needed to focus on how we bring in funds, and so that we do so in a way that is equitable and efficient and effective. And the second proposal from BTAC is the recommendation to look at wholesale alternatives to the business tax entirely in terms of how we ask business to contribute to the general fund in general. That RFP has been issued. We've already had a proposers conference on that, and we have a target finish date for that proposal for, I believe, late spring or early summer, so that council has an opportunity to review those recommendations and, in fact, make some changes and implement those changes.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor, I appreciate those answers there, because I think you highlighted a very important point about an ad hoc committee on taxes, which is so important, because every year we talk about doing something, and every year there's another problem, and every year we never get to it. So, and I think what you spoke of, the Budget and Finance Committee's challenge of two separate areas here, it would be nice to be able to focus on that so we could really see some tax reform to be fair to people. And on the other hand, too, I want to see a representative of the city walk down the business districts and make sure that everybody is participating in the support of the community by having a business license and running a good operation. So everybody plays fair. That makes great sense, and you could be more successful, I think, in our ability to administer the municipal government of Los Angeles. I stand to support Councilmember Gruhl, and also want to thank Councilmember Bernson for his remarks too, because there's these adjacent areas. I have areas adjacent of Glendale and Burbank, and they always say they run off to this other town because of this business tax. So I want to be fair, but I also want to get our contribution to be able to do what's good for the whole community and what we do with the revenue, but at the same time be fair to those who are doing the tough job of employing people, of organizing a business and being committed towards that success of entrepreneurship. Thank you very much. I support Wendy Gruhl.
Mr. Holden.
Oh, this business tax. How much of this money are we receiving now from these businesses that are doing business in the city of Los Angeles? And how do we learn that they are doing business in the city, if at all?
For the fiscal year ending 2002, we generated about $360 million from the business tax program.
That's the ones we know about. What we're talking about here is the ones we don't know about. Is that correct?
That is correct. Actually, part of that $360 million, there was about $17 million from the amnesty program. These would have been new businesses that came forward as a result of the waiver of penalty for the amnesty program. So there were some new businesses who were
This is a separate type of amnesty program. How does this amnesty program before us differ from the one that we've been using to brought in $17 million?
The amnesty program that we had last year, it was from October through December of 2001. The waiver that was offered was for penalty only and not interest. This particular amnesty type program that's being discussed today includes not only the penalty portion but also interest.
Up to a cap.
Up to 85,000 of gross receipts. What that equates to is about, on average, about $1,500 in total of penalty and interest per taxpayer.
If you were to get the money.
Right.
But how did you come to know about these people doing business?
We have a number of ways of coming to know about businesses. We have a tax enforcement unit that goes out and go to these various businesses to find out if they have a business tax registration certificate. We have an outside consultant who does tax discovery work for us. Certainly the AB 63 program through the state tax sharing, we were able to identify 151,000 potentially unregistered businesses, and there are other ways of discovering businesses.
So of those 100,000 plus businesses doing business in the city of Los Angeles, how were you able to determine what the gross receipts might have been, or is, or was?
Well, for the 151,000, we don't know what the gross receipts are because the state did not give us any income information. What we do know is for the 2002 annual tax year, the average receipt was $500 or less, and that amounted to about 2/3 of our taxpayer accounts that are in our system.
Were you able to learn how long they've been in business? They've been reporting to the state, but not to the city.
It's a self-reporting system.
To the state, self-reporting?
Our system is a
I know your system is self-reporting. The state provided you the information about those doing business in the city of Los Angeles, but not let the city of Los Angeles know that they're doing business in the city. My question is, how did the state give you any information that would tell you how long they've been operating their business in the city of Los Angeles?
That information was not provided. The only
Did
information...
you request it?
It was, when the Assembly bill was signed, the bill was very specific about the information that it would give to California cities. We would have preferred to have had gross income information, start date, and other relevant information because it would have helped us in our compliance efforts. But the state legislators agreed to provide us minimal information, that is, the name of the business, the primary business activity, the address, the federal ID number, and social security number.
In closing, you stated just earlier to my question that amnesty programs do in fact work because you raised about $17 million that we wouldn't have had. So therefore, we're assuming that this amnesty program would follow, that this amnesty program would bring in some additional revenue that we're not getting at this point in time. Are you supporting this?
I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, although we can't quantify it, I think it is likely that if we do waive some of the interest in our penalties, it is likely that businesses will come forward.
So when the money comes in, we can quantify it?
Yes, we will be able to when it's in our system.
Thank you. All right.
Mr. Reyes.
Council President, I just want to echo some of the thoughts that Councilman Burton raised, but Deputy Mayor, I don't want to put you on the spot. But I wanted to know, are we in a position as a city to start looking at which businesses can we work with that we can become more inviting as a city to stimulate investment in the city? And do we have is there a game plan? What are your thoughts about the mayor's office? Because I'd love to engage this dialogue for one reason, in that we are at a point where we've passed these new zones, the RES3, RES4, mixed use, commercial and housing. And when we do that, can we put together incentives, packages that makes these corridors that have been deteriorating over decades to become magnets, if you will, to bring in businesses that creates employment, 1 or 2 jobs, maybe 3 jobs with these commercial activity, or engage the bigger entities and start tapping into this large population base that needs a job. And if we're ever really going to engage the issues that are right now being publicized with our youth when it comes to the gang violence, we need to establish this connection of jobs. We can do intervention, we can keep throwing money at all these other sticks, but we need to develop the carrots. We need to grow these carrots. So from a business point of view, tax issue, is there a strategy in how we can start stimulating this, knowing it's a very complicated challenge that we have? Have some thoughts on that?
Absolutely. You've raised a number of key economic development questions. So in theory, I have a lot to say about that. And in fact, working with the chair of the EDE committee, Councilman Garcetti, we've been working on a number of fronts. For instance, another of the proposals or recommendations from VTAC is to update a study that was done, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago now by the Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation, LAEDC, and Jack Kaiser, excuse me, to identify the growth industries in the city and provide possible tax relief and other assistance to nurture those industries. And we talk about growth industries, we also want to make sure we're looking at quality growth industries. Quality meaning industries that not only provide good paying jobs, but provide entry-level jobs that have career ladders in those industries so people can advance in their careers and provide for their families and generate and create wealth, et cetera. When we talk about business attraction, I think we need to think about, and this is a long conversation, so I'll keep it brief, but happy to talk to you offline about it. There are different types of businesses, those that roughly professional services and industrial jobs that typically provide higher wages than their retail jobs. Now, we need retail because people who live in neighborhoods need retail services. So working with EDE committee, there's an RFP that we're about to release for a web-based tool that will enable, basically kind of turn the tables on how the private sector looks at market opportunities. In other words, to identify that even though a community may be low income, there's tremendous aggregate buying power in those communities, so we can bring those types of neighborhood serving retail businesses into low-income communities where those folks might not be making, where the businesses might not be making decisions to go there currently. As far as the kind of the quote better paying industries, business tax is certainly one measure by which business will determine where to locate. But there are a number, I think that when you talk to business location consultants or relocation consultants, there are two issues that are, I think, first and foremost in their minds that really relates to not only the business but to their employees, and that is housing and schools. People spend most of their money on housing, and if they're in a school district that they don't think is performing well, they have to consider paying a lot of money for private school. So, and they don't want to do that. So people, I'm sure you're all aware that housing prices are often higher in communities that have good school districts, and it's harder to find a house there. So addressing the housing crisis is an essential component of economic development, and the zones that you've been working on in your committee will play a big role in helping that. As far as the school system, obviously we need to work as a community because it's not anything the city has direct control over, but with investments in LA's Best, et cetera, we can really do what we can as a city to play a leadership role in improving the school system and the performance of the schools there. But as far as taxes are concerned, one thing I'm actually working with Larry Cosmont on, who produces a cost of doing business survey that is often cited by folks as a complaint against the city of LA. I'm working with Larry Cosmont and the Office of Finance and the Department of Water and Power to show that it's not only tax rates, but also utility rates. We have an advantage of having one of the most reliable and most inexpensive electricity and water rates in the state. And when our rates, when you compare our rates to Edison, for instance, for electricity, they can be upwards of 30% cheaper than here in LA than in municipalities that contract or unincorporated areas that contract with Southern California Edison for the electricity provision. We need to make sure that we inform businesses better of that advantage, and it may be the case that if you take the business tax and weigh it against the savings electricity rates, that in fact it might actually be a wash. I don't know the answer to that yet, but I've directed Office of Finance and my staff to research that.
What I'd like to suggest, and I'll talk to my colleague, Councilman Garcetti, on this, is that working with your office, we start actually setting up profiles of opportunities. And instead of going through all the technical language, actually have examples, live models of how this environment can evolve with these infusion of either legislation or funding or waivers to create this incentive so that if we're ever going to really use these different zones, and it's up to each councilman to stimulate it, that it comes with a total package. People understand there's a level of predictability on why they should invest. And when we move forward with the mixed-use housing with school ordinance, I would hope we can get your support so that way we can talk about the quality of education to address that other factor you mentioned. So thank you for agreeing with me.
Absolutely. Thank you. Ms. Miskowski? Ms. Miskowski passes. Mr. Burnson?
Yeah, I just want to add a couple things. I didn't want to sound too negative before, but I've been down this road so many times. As a matter of fact, a number of years ago, I proposed an initiative for the city to give free business license tax to any new business locating for the first year, and then 50% for the second year, and got nowhere. Didn't get support from the mayor's office at that time, and it didn't get support from the council, and it just died. But the same thing still exists today. Now, you mentioned the utility. You may have picked a poor example there, and I'll tell you why. Even though our water rates and our electricity rates are low, remember, business gets nailed with a 12% utility users tax. And so that kind of wipes out any benefits that you get from having lower rates. So, we need to find a better way, and that it isn't just the business license fee. We need to figure out a better way to finance the business the city does. There's something wrong with the method and the revenue sources and so forth. So we need to take a look at this entire picture. If we were going to do something like this, and nobody wants to impose a tax like the federal income tax or the state income tax, but if we were going to tax business, Maybe the way to tax business and individuals who are private entrepreneurs, even out of their homes, would be on a basis of their net profits, not on their gross receipts. You know, one of the biggest complaints I had were from large institutions such as savings and loans, banks, who take deposits that is not their money. They're in keeping of this money, but yet they are required to file a receipt, gross receipts for those funds. Also, auto dealers, anybody who handles large transactions with small, narrow profit margins. I think that we need to look at the whole procedure. This goes a lot deeper than just what we've done right now. One of the things you might look at, I don't know if you've already done it, but if you haven't, rather than looking at the 1090 and the Certificate C or whatever it is, what about the State Board of Equalization people that pay sales tax? Do we ask them for information about who's paying sales tax? Do we do that?
We actually work with the State Board of Equalization, whereby we do periodic audits to determine that the City of Los Angeles is getting its fair share.
I understand that. Do we look at the people who are paying it to make sure that if they're doing business in the City of Los Angeles and are paying sales tax, they may not have a city business license. I understand some will still slip through the cracks, those that deal in cash and don't pay taxes and so forth, and we have people of that nature. But do we actually double check, do we double check the names of people who pay sales tax in Los Angeles?
We do. We actually, my staff has advised me that that information is turned over to our tax discovery consultant, and they actually take and match that data against our taxpayers' records to identify unregistered tax
It seems to me that would be the most logical place to go after people who don't have a business license. You know they're in business, they're paying sales tax, rather than the approach that we took. But if you're already doing it, I would suggest that's the area to follow up on.
Yeah, that is one of the many mechanisms of tax discovery in our office.
Before calling the next speaker, members, we did receive one speaker card after the beginning of council discussion. Let's hear from Mr. Brendan Huffman at this time.
Thank you, Council President. I'll be quick. I'm Brendan Huffman with the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here this morning to support Councilmember Gruhl's motion. But I'd like to say that this has turned into a fascinating discussion, and it's very heartening to the business community to see certain questions raised and this dialogue start moving forward again. So I'd like to commend the City Council on that, as well as the Mayor's staff for working closely with BTAC so we can see some reforms move forward in the coming months. Let me conclude by saying that the council offices will be receiving calls from the LA Chamber to set up a series of meetings with your constituents from the small business community in your districts to talk about not just business tax reforms, but the overall business climate here in LA. Again, I appreciate Councilmember Gruhl's leadership, and thanks very much.
Thank you. This concludes public comment on this item. Our next and I believe final speaker, Ms. Gruhl.
Yes, thank you, Council President. I want to again thank my colleagues for this, I think, really good discussion, which Brendan alluded to. Councilman Bernsen, I used to shop in your store at the Northridge Mall. You had a business license. You were paying your taxes, as is my family business over the 60 years, which is probably why I am so passionate about this, of my experience. Just in closing, one is that the BTAC recommendations, and I think this experience has given us an opportunity, sometimes with challenges, gives us an opportunity to look at our business tax reform, gross receipts tax, you name it, all those items that have been in the BTAC recommendations and issues that have been brought to you today by my council colleagues. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity. Also, just to address one of Mr. Bernsen's comments, which was the amnesty program was one, again, for people who probably knew they should be paying their taxes. This is a program where it's sent to AB 63 individuals who did not know necessarily that they owed those taxes. Some may have, but I think we're trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. So I would like to reiterate my motion today on the item, amending motion, which is the $500 per year taxes owed, which would be the threshold we are discussing. Secondly, then we ask the Office of Finance to send that letter to recipients indicating and clarifying what action we have taken today. I think any funds we use to do that is going to better the business climate in the city of Los Angeles. And at that same time, there also may be some language barriers, and we may look at English and Spanish where appropriate for individuals, as well as you send out that letter. So those would be my two amending motions, the $500 limit as well per year, as well as the letter to go out to each of the individuals that receive this notification under AB 63, which will be applicable.
Could I ask a question?
Okay, for clarification.
Let me also just ask that the letter, the funding from the letter come out of the trust fund, which is the business reform fund, so it isn't a further drain on the general fund. And also, in fact, I was going to bring in a motion on generally the overview, that before such letter goes out, it be reviewed by the CAO, the CLA, and the mayor's office for assistance in terms of how to communicate, not just perhaps an accountant type of letter, but something that really helps explain the situation.
Thank you for that. I wholeheartedly agree with that amendment.
Okay. Any objection to those amendments?
You have a question?
I just wanted to ask council if they wanted to consider a sunset on this particular waiver, because if we leave it unlimited, there is no incentive to come forward. So I think it should sunset at least by the end of the fiscal year, June 30, 2003.
That seems reasonable to me, so that's fine too. We'll make as well, include that in the motion.
Any objection to that amending motion? Seeing none, let's consider the matter as amended. Madam Clerk, would you please open the roll on item 56? Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved. Thank you very much. Next item, please.
The next item, Mr. President, not on the agenda, Special Motion 1, presented by Councilmember Wendy Grohl and seconded by Councilmember Holden, and the city attorney will explain the need to make the findings.
Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the council meeting on December 10th, the CRA housing bond project was approved as amended to reflect a monthly rental cap of $350. Upon review, this lower rate will not support bond financing. The bond sale is scheduled for December 20th. This matter came to the attention of city staff after the posting of today's agenda. As such, council must first make findings that there is a need to take immediate action on this matter, and that the need for action came to the attention of council after the posting of the agenda for today's council meeting. If such a finding is made, it is requested that council amend the monthly rental cap to reflect the correct rate.
Members wishing to be heard on the findings? On the findings, seeing none, Madam Clerk, please open the roll on the findings for Special 1. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Findings being made, Special 1 is now before us. Members wishing to be heard on the motion itself? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please open the roll on Special 1. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved. Forthwith, please. Next item.
This is the time for comments from the public on items not on council's agenda.
And receiving no requests, members of the public to address the council. Public comment for today's meeting is closed. Next item.
Do you wish to clear the desk before going into closed session?
Let's do housekeeping.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Motion shall be posted and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Galanter requests to be excused Tuesday, January 7th for city business that meets council policy.
She is excused.
And Councilmember Hahn requests to be excused to arrive late tomorrow at 11 a.m. and that city business, and that also meets council policy.
Ms. Hahn is excused.
And that clears the desk for closed session.
Okay, let's, I see the Executive Director of our Human Relations Commission standing in the back, giving a tour to some guests at City Hall. Welcome. Welcome to Council Chambers. And we hate to be rude, but in conformance with California law, the council is preparing to enter into closed session. Guards, would you please clear the chambers? back into open session. Madam Clerk, matter before us, please.
There are settlements, Mr. President, for item 53A, settlement in the case of Amoroso versus City of Los Angeles, and that's in the amount of $2,500,000.
Mr. Holden, did you wish to speak on one of these closed session items? I see your name on the queue.
Mr. President, members, I recommend that we vote to settle this case. Substantial physical harm was done to this individual and is justified, and the recommendation. As for an aye vote.
Other members wishing to be heard? If not, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
9 ayes, 1 no.
That is approved. Next item.
Next item, Mr. President, item 53B, settlement in the case of Larry Jackson versus City of Los Angeles, and that's in the amount of $225,000.
Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item.
Item 53C, settlement in the case of Gloria Maria Gonzalez Barboso versus City of Los Angeles, and that's in the amount of $150,000.
Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item.
53D, settlement in the case of Karen Briscoe versus Eric Dagley et al., and that's in the amount of $103,250.
Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item.
Item number 55, that settlement in the case of United States versus City of LA, and that's in the amount of $50,340.
Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next case is item 57A, and that's in the case of Alice Malott and Eric Malott, and that's in the amount of $150,000.
Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item.
Okay, 57C, and that's in the case of Milberg, Weiss, Burnside, Ines, and Lurch versus City, and that's in the amount of $200,000.
Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Next item.
57D is settlement in the case of Timothy Floodquist versus City of Los Angeles, and that's in the amount of $145,000.
Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
57E is settlement in the case of City versus Shimutsu, and that's in the amount of, settlement amount is $127,600.
Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
And 57F is settlement in the case of Charles Harris versus City and Tracy Woods and Edward Harris versus City, and that's in the amount of $315,000.
Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
And G is settlement in the case of Lopez versus City, and that's in the amount of $280,000.
Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
And 57H is settlement in the case of Donald Lewis versus City of Los Angeles, and that's in the amount of $270,000.
Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
And the desk is clear, Mr. President.
And again, members, a reminder that all matters approved today by the council are going forthwith, this being the last legislative week for the calendar year. Thank you very much for your patience. Members, are there any announcements before we adjourn? Ms. Hahn, followed by Mr. Labange.
I just wanted to let those of you who are members of the Education and Neighborhoods Committee, we are going straight there, no break, because we have community members that are already up there waiting for us. So let's go straight up there.
Okay, Mr. Labange.
I just wanted council to recognize that Carson Palmer, the senior of USC, was awarded the Heisman Trophy And that's a very great honor, and the fact that how he won it shows the greatness of his skills in leading the Trojans this year and being Pac-10 co-champions, but also his commitment to this university and as a player, and as he hung in there and achieved greatness and excelled in his 5th year. So Carlson Palmer, Heisman Trophy winner, 2002.
Mr. Holden.
And I was there at the game, Tom was there, and the last game they played, and the way they beat up on Notre Dame really made all this happen. They just whooped them from the time the bell rang until the very end. It was a fight, wasn't it?
Mr. LeBlanc.
The great coach from Michigan State once said there's 2 ways to win a Heisman Trophy: play for Notre Dame or beat Notre Dame, and he certainly did. God bless the Irish, though.
Other announcements? Members, any other announcements? If not, please rise for adjourning motions.
Who invited you?
Mr. Burnson.
Yes, I have 2. The first is for Ralph Hatter, who passed away on December of this year, age 93, longtime resident of Routon, Louisiana, grandfather to James Williams, General Chairman of United Transportation Union. Although not a blood relative, was really the father figure for James, took care of his needs, make sure he got a college education at Grambling University. And I would also sadly ask that we adjourn in memory of William Bill Greer, husband of Billy Greer. He passed away from cancer. He's survived by his wife Billy, 2 grown children, Carol and Jeff, and 5 grandchildren.
All members.
I want to second it.
Other tributes?
Holden second.
Mr.
Services are tomorrow. On Mr. Greer, I understand at 1 o'clock in Malibu. And I don't know if members are attending, but I have been informed it's tomorrow 1 o'clock in Malibu. Some church in Malibu, I have it in the office, but the services are being held tomorrow.
Mr. Zine, if you don't mind sharing that with all if you don't mind sharing that with all of our colleagues later today. Any other tributes? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
See you in committee.
Thank you very much. Mr. Reyes for an announcement.
Yes, we'll have plum committee, 2:30, elevators permitting.
Thank you all very much. This meeting is adjourned.